I'm on my way to my Father, but I will return.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Assalamu alaikum. I am Karriem Allah, and I am directly from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who sits on the throne of universal power and dominion. Thank you for taking time to view this brief but important message. And I intend to be very deliberate and succinct, but again brief. As is customary, I want to open this particular message with a verse or verses from the Holy Quran. In Surah 85, that is chapter 85, verses 1 through 3, it states, "By the heaven full of stars, in the promised day, in the bearer of witness, in that to which witness is born." The promised day is the day of judgment, but it also represents a monumental event relating to the promise that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, in that he would join him on the mother wheel in the execution of the judgment and the establishment of Allah's eternal kingdom. It just so happens that this 85th surah corresponds with the age of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan of 85 years. Each of us is a witness of his work, and he is the one to whom witness is being born to at this time in the fulfillment of the Messianic prophecies. Now, in my previous message, I briefly explained the work that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad entrusted me to do and has been guiding me to do, and it centers on the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and my proper representation of the domestic life and of him in his exalted state as the Christ written of in the scriptures. I have exquisitely made this, if you would, case or argument in this little book called The Identity of the Christ, understanding the fulfillment of the Christ through Master Fard Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Let us consider an excerpt from this book. In the 80-plus year history of the lost foundation of Islam, we have witnessed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad represent Master Fard Muhammad as the long-awaited Messiah, the Christ. In like manner, we have witnessed the Honorable Louis Farrakhan represent the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as the exalted Christ. He first declared this during his 1981 Savior's Day address and has continuously reinforced it up to this day. Now, since 2015, I have been publicly advocating that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is the exalted Christ. How can all three men be the exalted Christ? Either there's confusion in the theology of the lost foundation of Islam, or there's greater depth to the fulfillment of the Messianic prophecies that we must ultimately understand. So this book, along with the others that I have written, represents my witness, which is wrapped in my integrity and my morality. These books represent public records. Now, as the Messiah in the Christ, the true testament of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's life is described in the Messianic prophecies contained in the Bible and the Holy Quran, specifically the narratives of the prophets. Therefore, his life was described thousands of years before he was born. I think I need to say that again. Therefore, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's life was described thousands of years before he was born. So, for example, this book, you remind me of David. The prophet David prefigured the Messiah, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. How much do we know about the prophetic narrative or the Davidic narrative involving David? Well, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, in fulfilling aspects of the prophets' lives, certainly fulfills aspects, even the most controversial ones, that's depicted in the biblical narrative of David. And how well we know that narrative will depend on whether we survive the satanic attack against him, and particularly against his private life. Let us now consider the crucifixion of the Messiah. Again, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We want to take up the issue of what it means to be a witness in light of the false witnesses that assisted the satanic leaders in crucifying Jesus, according to the Bible. Our aim is to insulate the Honorable Louis Farrakhan from false accusations made deliberately and carelessly. So let us deal with this storyline beginning in Matthew chapter 26, verses 3 and 4. Then assembled together the chief priests and the scribes and the elders of the people unto the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas. And consulted they then that they might take Jesus by subtlety and kill him. Subtlety means, in this case, that they needed to make the arrest of Jesus appear legitimate, even though they knew it wasn't, because their aim, as stated in those verses, was to kill him. How did they take Jesus subtly? According to the Gospels, false witnesses were involved in Jesus' crucifixion. In Matthew 26, verses 59 and 60, it states, Now the chief priests and the elders and all of the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet they found none. At last came 2 false witnesses. Now, a false witness is a person who claims to have witnessed something that did not occur or that they did not witness. The chief priests, the elders, and council are this world's prominent religious, civil, social, and political leaders. They all conspired against Jesus. And that same conspiracy is underway right now against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We need to bring clarity to verse 60, because on the surface it doesn't make sense. How, if they saw false witnesses, though many came, they found none, until the 2 came at last. So what does that mean? Although many came, they found none. It simply means that Jesus was a subject of rumor. People were claiming that he said and did things that he did not say and do, or they took what he said and did out of context. So the claims of false witnesses were all over the place and included some of Jesus's disciples. This is alluded to in the Gospel of John, and we're going to take that up too. So let's pick up. After Jesus is apprehended because Judas betrays him, he is interrogated by the chief priests and the authorities. So in John 18, the Gospel of John 18, verses 19 and 21, it states, The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort. And in secret have I said nothing. Why ask thou me? Ask them which heard me, what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. So Jesus is setting the record straight in that his doctrine is public. Jesus did not partake of secret councils, and a private meeting does not mean a secret meeting. There's a difference. The Holy Quran, Allah through the Holy Quran, forbids secret councils. We'll find that in Surah 58, verse 10. Secret counsels are only of the devil, that he may cause to grieve those who believe. In the Old Testament, God Jehovah gave Moses specific instructions to the people to refrain from false witnessing. In the book of Exodus, the 23rd chapter, it states, "And thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil." And there's something about a multitude doing evil and someone having the stamina to stand alone on the side of integrity. And I have to say, we find very few of those types of persons in this world. One person, most people want to go where the crowd is. So God told Moses to tell people, you stand on truth, don't follow the crowd in doing evil. Have some backbone, in other words. God would not have issued such a law if the behavior were not pervasive among the people. And we can all agree today that that behavior is pervasive. The U.S. justice system is a farce. I'm not the only one that knows that, and I'm certainly not the first and the only one who is saying that. People are convicted and persecuted based on false witnesses. And millions of lives are destroyed and ruined because people sell their integrity and their morality for money, position, fame, or because they are envious and jealous of the person that is the target of the false witnessing. So in John 18:20, Jesus retorts again to his interrogators that his teaching is public. Again, let's state it. I speak openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whether the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing. The Jesus of 2,000 years ago did not speak to the world. He did his work in Palestine. However, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has spoken to the world. He has taught in the public for more than 60 years. His teachings are extraordinarily public, and thousands of videos right now are available on YouTube where you can watch full messages or clips of his teaching dating all the way back to the 1970s and even beyond that. Now, how many people have the Honorable Louis Farrakhan met with in private in the last 40 years? Hundreds? Thousands? Well, each of these persons can claim that he made statements on various matters. Some can even claim that he said things that are outside or contrary to his character. This is what is meant by many false witnesses came forward, yet they found none. So Jesus wanted to point the authorities and the people to what he said publicly in his public addresses and not what others claim that he said or stated in a private meeting. We should also here note that the satanic leaders, the chief priests, they were looking for specific kinds of witnesses, not the witnesses who carelessly claim that Jesus did such and such. Maybe they just wanted to look big in the eyes of people, or they wanted to show that they were in the end with Jesus. They were looking for witnesses that would claim that Jesus did something that they could use to put Jesus to death. So it had to be something of a capital crime. Just keep that in mind. So in this climate of dealing with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's departure to the great mother wheel, to be with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's, false witnessing can lead to the deaths of many people. Now, this part is a warning, because some people will claim that the minister did not like such and such a person. Others might then feel that it's within their right, based on that false claim, to do harm or even kill the person that is the target of the false witness or the false claim. If this behavior becomes pervasive, then I want you to know that everyone is a potential victim of false witnessing. So while one person is claiming that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said this about a person, even by innuendo, to encourage the people to reject or to harm that person, then somebody else is saying the same thing about him involving the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And what do we have? We have chaos and we have madness. And we don't want that to happen. Therefore, it is best for everyone to refrain from that kind of demonic behavior. And Allah demands that we do. In Surah 49, again of the Holy Quran, that chapter discusses the proper etiquette in dealing with a messenger of God. In verses 1 and 2, it states, "O you who believe, put not yourselves forward before Allah and his messenger, but fear Allah, for Allah is he who hears and knows all things. O you who believe, raise not your voices above the voice of the prophet, nor speak aloud to him, and talk as ye may speak aloud to one another, lest your deeds become vain and ye perceive not." And again, Allah is not addressing, "O ye hypocrites," or "O ye disbelievers." He's addressing, "O you who believe," because this behavior is among those who claim to believe in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So these verses are really self-explanatory. And again, it doesn't say registered members of the Nation of Islam. It says, "Oh, you believe." So that is everyone, billions, millions of people who believe in the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. We're required to speak straight words associated with him. And those words are public record. And again, you can find them on YouTube in his speeches, lectures, and in the interviews that he's given. That's our source of what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan believes on any kind of point. Not somebody who's going to claim something that he said to them in private, although it does have merit. But if it's contrary to his integrity, it has no merit. So being forward in this case to the messenger of God means to speak or represent an important matter related to the messenger before he speaks on that matter himself. This is also uncongenial behavior. So in verses 3 through 5 of the same surah, it states, "Those that lower their voices in the presence of Allah's messenger, their hearts has Allah tested for piety. For them is forgiveness and a great reward. Those who shout out to thee from behind or from without the inner apartments, most of them lack understanding." In some translations of the Holy Quran, the verse says, some of them, they have no sense, but they lack understanding. And if they had patience until thou could come out to them, it would have been best for them. Now, what does it mean to shout out to thee from without the inner apartments? It means being belligerently forward to the Messiah. For example, there were some who handled the film Betty and Coretta that aired in 2013, where Mary J. Blige had a role in that picture, in that movie. And in her role, she had words or a script that indicated that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was responsible for her husband's death. And of course, people went bananas on social media, to say the least. Well, let's look at how the Honorable Louis Farrakhan handled that. Here's a small clip of how he handled that particular scheme. And then, of course, what he says at the end regarding being a proper witness and using the highest of integrity and intelligence. Watch.
And while she and I were talking, there was the enemy putting out a rumor that there is a beef between Mary J. Blige and Minister Farrakhan over her role as Betty Shabazz. Now, that language beef that the enemy used is the language of street people when they have arguments with each other particularly in the hip hop culture. And when Tupac and Biggie had a beef, one was killed, and a few months later, Biggie was killed. So they were planning something very evil. And that's why I say to you, my dear and beloved followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under my leadership, never get on Facebook or your social media speaking vile words toward Mary J. Blige or anything like that. Remember my admonition to you in my broadcasts. I want you to get on Facebook, get on your Twitter, get on YouTube. But I want you to be intelligent as you represent God and His Christ.
In Surah 49:6, Allah continues to instruct the believers. O you who believe, if a wicked person comes to you with any news, ascertain the truth. And we have a hard time doing that, I have to say. Just generally being in the American public, whether black or white. Continuing, lest you harm people unwittingly, and afterwards become full of repentance for what you have done. But since unrighteousness or wickedness has gripped humanity, the original people and the Caucasian people, Allah says in verse 7, and know that among you is Allah's messenger, were he in many matters to follow your wishes, ye would certainly fall into misfortune. So at the end of the day, whether we investigate or not, we are to look at what Allah's Messiah has stated and ruled in that regard. Now, I want to end this with my work. I have spoken and written about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's for that matter, private life, the domestic life, like no other person on the planet. For 4 years. My messages that spans almost 2 years, weekly messages, are also available on YouTube. Where is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's condemnation of me? His public condemnation of me on all the YouTube videos that he has out there for you to view. There is none, because he made none. So the few of you who innuendo and bear false testimony regarding my relationship and what he has said about me, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. And again, we don't want false witnessing where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is concerned. That's being forward. Now, certainly he cannot overlook what I'm doing. So who are you to say that he's against me when he hasn't made that claim himself? I'll leave that point there. So again, that kind of behavior of false witnessing, we want to eliminate. And we want to consult the public record of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has written and spoken. Now, if we desire to represent the Honorable Louis Farrakhan as a good man, then we must speak of the good that he has done and is doing, like I am doing. This keeps us from being false witnesses that can be used not only against the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, but against each other. So thank you for taking time to view this message. May Allah continue to bless you and your family. Assalamu alaikum.